Okay, good evening, everybody. This is the meeting of the Ad Hoc Grant Search Committee for January 19th, 2021. First meeting of the new year, and hopefully that bodes well. Paul's going to be joining us in a minute. We'll call the meeting together to order here at 6:01. And we are recording tonight. The meeting is held by Zoom as it has been all year long. Nothing changing there. So we're still meeting by Zoom per the COVID restrictions, and therefore we will do our best to try and communicate at long distance here. So with that, we have some news, I guess, since last meeting, just to say that Diana has now been appointed by the select board. So she's an official member of the committee. So welcome, Diana. You're able to vote now and do it.
Sworn in today.
Oh, good. In full-fledged. Perfect. I was gonna say,
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
were you able to get sworn in? Good. I'm glad you are. So that's wonderful. Good. So with that in mind, what I'd like to do, we have a couple of old minutes, and I don't know, we can either pass over them to the next time. I sent them out kind of late. So did you all have a chance to look through them at all, or would you rather wait until next week or next time? It's not a big issue. We just have to approve them at some point so they can be posted.
Next time would be good.
Okay, let's just do that. Yeah, here comes Paul. Just a sec. Great. So we have all of our committee and Paul Fergal representing the Greenway Committee. And hi, Paul. Glad you could join us.
Good evening.
Good. Hi. Yeah, so we were just going to get started here. Just noting that Diana has now been appointed as a member of the grant committee by the select board.
Awesome.
Since our last meeting, and we've decided to forego approving minutes today just because I sent them out kind of late. So we'll pick that up next time. So I guess what we wanted to do today really in terms of old business is just see the progress that we've made so far on grant application for Mass Trails. I think there's been a lot of good digging around and finding information. I'm very impressed with some of the stuff that you guys have been coming up with. So let's start maybe, I don't know, Ed, have you had a chance to talk to the lawyers at all or not yet?
I haven't heard back from them as of yet.
Okay.
But actually, when I do, I won't wait for a meeting. I'll just send out the information to everybody.
Yeah, no, that's probably a good idea. Because I think I keep, part of that too, is just trying to look at the letter from the railroad that, gave certain steps that had to be dealt with. And I just want to be sure that we can plug those steps into our timeline and get a realistic timeline from those. I mean, it's not just, the first step. There's many steps in terms of, they have to do something with the Surface Transportation Board to formally abandon the railroad, et cetera, et cetera. So there's half a dozen steps there that I just wanted to see if the lawyers.
Chris, I don't necessarily think they need to abandon the railroad. I don't know if that's a provision that is necessary, because if they abandon it, I don't know what the legal terms are, but yeah. I don't know if that's something they have to do.
Well, it's something that, as you read through the letter of intent from the railroad, it's kind of in there as one of the paragraphs of here's the process that we kind of go through. So I
gotcha. Okay.
Assumed it hadn't been done. It may be some requirement of this Surface Transportation Board.
Got it. Okay.
So I don't know, and that's part of the questions with Ed. So if we can figure that out, because that would then help us to break down a few milestones in the timeline, which is kind of what we need to do. They told us to work from July of 21 to June of 22. So to try to figure out how long it's going to take to really conclude this rail banking agreement. We know we have a town meeting we'd have to go through in May, but there's a few other legal steps that we want to be sure that, we're noting so that we want to show the grant committee, I think, that we know what we're getting into. So the more we can tell them that, yes, we know there's this step and that step, the better, I guess. So good. All right. So let's go. Diana, why don't you start with a couple things that you found out? I know you've been contacting both the Easthampton Rail Trail folks and Pioneer Valley Planning.
Yeah, so Easthampton Rail Trail just referred me to the PVPC for some statistics about usage. And the fellow there, Jeff McCullough, sent quite a few maps and some charts and statistics, and I just kind of pretty much plopped them into my question about the, you know, why it's a high quality trail and kind of thing. But yeah, it was interesting. I think the high point was about 4,500 people passed the counter on Union Street, the rail trail, on a June day. And then so far, the 3 quarters through first 3 quarters of 2020, 135,000 people used the Westfield Rail Trail.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I just said, you know, that question said, how is it good for anybody, really? So I said, you know.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah, and so anyway, he also cited all these other rail trails that have said Southampton would be a really important link.
Yeah.
So I just plopped that all into section, I think it's 312, my section, and I hope it doesn't repeat something said elsewhere. Yeah.
No, I don't think it does. I haven't had a chance to take a look at it, but I think that's really good to try and mention, especially where others are citing the importance of having our portion completed. I think that's great. So, and I saw those figures too from Westfield. It's amazing. I think the Westfield and the Southwick figures that you showed, which I think, I don't know if I copied that into the Google Docs, or I'll send the email around to everybody, but it showed it literally like a 90% or 85 to 90% increase in usage of the trail, same time, same period, from 2019 to 2020.
Yeah, so I didn't say that it was a huge increase. I just said what the numbers were. Do you think
say
it was a big increase?
Yeah, no, that's fine. But I think it, you know, just, you know, the COVID thing has really made people try to get out and do something. And so this has been even more important. I think people want to get out and use the trail. So it was just some really interesting information. So I think we can be sure that we, you know, got that referenced in there. It's good little tidbits for sure. So thanks for reaching out on that. We were trying to see how we could make an argument on that. It's one of those last questions about the real uniqueness, and, you know, what does the Southampton portion have to offer, you know, culturally and historically, and you know, really attracting people from around Massachusetts, not just Southampton people. So I think that will probably give some argument to there. So good. And then Kate, you'd been working on the environmental justice and the accessibility issues again. So you want to mention a couple things that you found? I think I might have put one of those in the Google Docs, and if not, I can make those more available to everybody too.
So I did try to simplify a couple paragraphs into the environmental justice stuff as it related to like underserved populations and specifically low-income families. And I also tried to highlight how connecting the bike trail to Westfield, because obviously there's no environmental justice communities in Southampton, but I did find a lot of good information between reading like the Westfield Open Space and Recreation Plan. And then I found this really great study that was done by Westfield State that shows that connecting the bike trail through Westfield really directly provides access to a large part of the population that doesn't have access to vehicles. So it actually allows for them to have, you know, more equitable access to the town, to Southampton, to Southwick. So I tried to, like, I don't know, I really struggled with this section just because I was pulling information from a lot of different places, but it was very similar in Easthampton where I know I mentioned 3 out of 4 of the environmental justice areas or targeted neighborhoods are really close to the rail trail. And so I tried to add a little bit more detail as you requested. And I did put a paragraph for each into the actual application. Yeah, it was really interesting to learn how much it really would tie together several environmental justice communities, even though we might not have one ourselves.
Right. No, that's good. And I think too, we don't even really have, you know, the low income housing that you mentioned, like for Easthampton. We don't really have that much in Southampton. Am I right on that? Correct. I know we've got those apartments behind Cumberland Farms, but I'm not sure how those are classified. I don't know. Do we have low income housing here in town? Anybody know offhand?
I don't think we do.
I don't think so. I think we don't actually. I think we're, yeah, I'll check with Janet on that. She'll tell me off the top of her head, I'm sure. But anyway, so good. So we found some interesting, bits and pieces there. And then Paul, I had a question for you just about how much we wanted to make that, how strong we wanted to say about making this missing middle link to the Westfield portion, given that we aren't going over all the way to where that could link. We're stopping at Sheldon's rather than going over the line. And you gave me a little bit of information in an email. Would you mind just kind of sharing that with everybody in terms of the history of why this kind of stopped at Sheldon's rather than going more into the Westfield part?
Yeah, so when I spoke with the previous chair of the Greenway Committee, Mike Bueller told me about the history of the project and how there was a significant amount of pushback to have it go the entire length towards Brickyard when they were trying to have a public outreach, when they had a public outreach of that proposed greenway work.
Yeah.
Frankly, my opinion is, I'm not going to sound, I'm not going to sound mean by saying that, or insincere by saying that we shouldn't do it, but I think, we should do it. I mean, that's something that obviously we need to continue to a network.
Yeah.
However, there's two problems that arise. It's actually one big problem is connectivity. It's like, where are we going with this in terms of once we have a dead end, does this connect to any network that it potentially will be on the Westfield side? Because right now, North Road, the rail line is active on south side of North Road in Westfield. So, we can't just continue to that point and call it a day. Obviously, there's other routes. So, when I met with the city engineer and the city engineering department in Westfield, they had some discussions about two different routes that they were looking at. Potentially, Brickyard Road turns into Route Road, I should say. And they were thinking maybe having a bike path or a shared way or share the way on Route Road. But, that hasn't really gone anywhere. The other alternative is looking at Route 10. The state has a project right now from the Mass Turnpike north all the way to where Cumberland Farms is at North Road and Route 10. And that's been slower than molasses flowing in terms of the state's progress with getting plans. That's been in discussions for several years, but there hasn't been really much activity done by the state. But it does have a tip number. It does have a shared use pathway that has been discussed to be put probably on the west side of Route 10, all the way there. So that means that if we were to do something, it would have to, if it goes there, then, we would consider maybe continuing at a future date along Route 10 or some other means. But it seems like the easiest point A to point B is to be continuing a shared use path to Sheldon's, if that's possible. I think it is. I mean, obviously, there's some challenges, particularly around the golf course, but it doesn't mean it can't be done.
Yeah. But that would have to be another DOT project, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we didn't have much control over that. I mean, I don't know how do we get on a DOT list anyway? Are they the ones that determine what's going to happen? Would they be likely to say, okay, we got to Cumberland and now we really do want to go all the way to Southampton? Would that be their initiative, or we have to do some pushing on that?
Yeah, I mean, we would have to create a project initiation form, which is part of submission to Mass DOT Project Review Committee that looks at the project need and if it's warranted. So the fact that Westfield already has a project on the books for Route 10, and frankly, that Route 10 project that Mass DOT is running is kind of underestimate of what that project is. You know, they've grossly underestimated the cost of it, in my opinion, but they're not really managing it well. So I don't know what's going on their end.
Yeah,
the city's really pushing to get it moving, but
yeah. Well, nothing's going to happen right away for any kind of extension. So at this point in time, we are stopping in Sheldon's, and we can still say though that we're intending to connect to the Westfield and the Columbia Greenway or whatever they're calling it, right? I mean, we can legitimately say that, you know, I mean, people would at worst would just ride their bike over on Route Road and get farther down, right? I mean, they couldn't use the railroad, but they could take their chances at riding their bike on the road now without a shared use path.
No, that's really interesting. I've done so much reading in the Westfield, that study that I shared last night from Westfield, and they said there's a lot of interesting statistics in there about how people are more likely to utilize a bicycle as a primary method of transportation if it is an off-road shared use path for safety reasons.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, I mean, I don't know that we have to worry about the fact that we're just ending in Sheldon's, and there still is going to be, I guess my only point is there's going to be a gap. No matter what we do, there's still a gap between Sheldon's and the Westfield Trail, right? So that's just so that we're all clear on that. So we just have to, you know, I think the state knows that too. So I don't know that we're saying anything different. They surveyed this amount, and that's what we have to go with. And I think, Paul, you recommended that we stick with the figure they're going with 3.5 miles, and that's what we should stick with, right?
That's the number they have, and I think that's the number we use because it's the official funded length. Okay.
Yeah, that's what's on the DOT tip sheet, and it's, you know, it's every report has got it a little bit differently depending on where they share it from here. So with that, let me I'm going to see if I can share this and not lose anything here. Hold on a second. Good. All right, magic. So what I think we're working on here, if this all works, I'm just going to run through it just real quickly. If this will scroll for me, will it scroll? Will it scroll? That's a good question. Will it scroll? Oh dear. No, I don't want that. Hold on. Okay. All right. So in the beginning, so this just so we know, let's just sure we're putting Ed's name on here as the contact. Ed, do you want to be Ed or Edward? How do you go officially on anything?
That is fine.
Okay. All right. There is no signature page on this, by the way, so you really don't even have to sign off on this. So we can talk about that. I mean, you need to read it obviously for putting it under your name, but there is no signature page, unlike the other grant. So we have the previous grant that we've just been awarded. I think that's all clear. I'm giving it a title of Rail Corridor Acquisition. Does that sound okay to everybody, or suggestions? What I'd like to do is kind of quickly run through where we are and see what gaps we still have and get a little bit of agreement on what we have in here, just so we know where we've got to still finish some work. So does Rail Corridor Acquisition do it?
Do we have to specify Southampton?
No, because it's the next question.
Oh, right here. No.
No, it's the next question. So if that's okay, Rail Corridor as a terminology. All right. And then the project description, we've got just a little bit here. Let me get a little bit bigger if I can. Everybody see this okay? Better? The blue is a new sentence added in. You want to take a second, just read through it real quick and see if there's anything that pops out. I don't know if people have had a chance to really kind of go through the sections that they weren't assigned. So
I think that looks great.
So this is where it talks about the process, the design process for the trail linking Manhattan Trail to the Westfield Columbia Greenway. So hopefully that's a true statement. I think we talked about this last time. I'm trying to go for putting the project value at 375 and then requesting basically 80% of that, which is 300,000, and then knowing we've got to come up with a 20% match which will be 80,000. So there we are. And then the activity of the project, the only thing, none of these really fit. So we're just going to put this under other, purchase the rail bed right of way. And it's going to be a shared use path versus all those other choices, right? And then what will it serve? So we have to check everybody. So we checked everybody. I did go ahead and check equestrians just because we talked about it a little bit later in there. I don't see why not. I mean, we're making the point that it's not snowmobiles and not ATVs. So I think we'll leave that in there, especially since we have a horse farm that this borders. And then this, the terminus and destination. So this, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, this part up here is where it all begins. So this is the beginning point because it's repeated down here too. So this 3.5 miles of 3 segments, which I think is fine. This, Kate, you pulled out as just specific GIS coordinates, or?
Yes, I went to, so Paul, you're more than welcome to check these. So I went to Google Maps and I took the intersections exactly where the trail would begin as mentioned in the segments. So I tried to say Coleman Road entrance is where the rail trail would begin at Coleman Road. And at the end, it's like where the path actually ends at College Highway near Sheldon Road. Like you can tell on the map where the rail trail is. So I pulled the GPS coordinate right at the end of that trail. But I literally went by what intersections are listed there.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever we need to do for more specificity. My only concern, because up here, and I'm not a master at reading these, so this has got even more detail than. I wonder if we need to do it at the each segment level. I don't know. If we did the beginning and the end, is that good enough? And this, is this, this is the 837, which goes a little bit different number than what we have here. So this is even more precise in this number here, which I just don't want to confuse things. That's all. So maybe. Well, I don't know. We just need to figure out what figures belong where.
Yeah, we probably don't need to. I mean, I don't know if we need to be down to the 10 trillionth, but
I just like I said, if you want to delete numbers off.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's perfect. It does a trick. Okay. I mean, they know better.
Yeah. Well, and I think it gives a number of miles in each segment, so I think that's valid. I mean, I think they should know that. And then if this is the true ending point, I think that's fine. So my thought would be maybe to bring these couple figures here and just put them here and not be as specific in this set of figures here. That's my only. I'm just going to highlight it for or underline it for myself here or something here, just because I think that might just add more confusion. So we just maybe take the simpler figures and put them here as a thought, but we'll tidy that up. And then it talks here about where it goes through and the bridges and the railroad crossings, going through the historic district, etc. This all looked pretty good to me. And Diana, you had a very great point. Diana, as you know, has worked on the Mass Trails application per se, and with Amanda Lewis on the one last year. And her comment, Diana, about being too wordy.
Yeah, I met with her and asked her to, sort of if she could explain why the previous applications for the same project had been rejected. And one of the things she said was the answers were too long. That at the time, this is probably 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
Her format was like this little narrow column. So it wasn't spread across the screen like this. She was looking at this narrow column and it just went on and on and on. It was a long answer. The people had written it, just wanted to do their best. And but that just made me mindful ever since, to be as succinct as possible.
Right. Well, and good point to remember too, is that right now we're working in a Word document, right? Mm-hmm. But the online version could very well be, one of those color blocks that you have to fit everything inside that color block. So this may get edited down as I enter some things in, but I just, you know, as long as everybody's okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Chris, but I don't think they do limit words. I mean, I suppose if they did, that might help.
So,
okay.
So there's a lot of redundancy. I mean, we're talking about National Historic. We're talking about endangered species. I mean, I don't know. Do we need to talk about that stuff here, given that there's a whole, you know, slew of other sections that talk about the same stuff? So I mean, if they told us that, you know.
Okay. Well, okay. Let's go back to the good point. Let's go back to the question. I mean, when in doubt, let's just, you know, let's not give more than what the question asks. I guess that's a good valid point. So here it was: project limits, starting points, and terminus, starting and terminus points, and destinations. So a little bit of destinations we could probably put in here, but we could save this for another place, maybe. Is that your point, Paul?
Well, we already discussed it in
greater
sections,
detail,
right? Where we talk about environmental permitting, where we talk about the environmental resource areas.
Yeah.
So that's already discussed. I thought. Maybe I'm wrong, but.
What if we deleted runs adjacent to the man? Well, it talks about destination, right? So what if we just deleted the whole middle part of it? And I mean, I think that some of that information really came from the feasibility study, but if we wanted to simplify it, couldn't we just say that, like, take out the whole middle part about the habitats for rare species and estimated habitats for rare wildlife? Just take out that, the vernal pools, take out that, and then I mean, I don't think it hurts to describe what it passes by.
Yeah, I mean, you could leave something like this in there maybe, and you know, leave the first sentence in this last part maybe.
Yeah,
I think it's important. I think it's important to ping the historical markers that are access points. So I think that's great. I was just saying maybe we don't need to talk about the NEPTs or the national heritage. Yeah.
Okay,
that stuff we can probably get rid of just to make it less wordy.
So you'd keep in the historic district or not? Yes.
Yeah, I would say it's historic places. I think where you're starting to and I don't think we talk about the proximity of the vernal pools.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm just going to put that in. Oops, that was the wrong thing. Sorry. Well, I'll definitely be able to see that. I will just note that so that I can go back and play with that later. Okay. All right.
So you can do if you go to editing, editing, you can do suggest edits, and you can just do a suggest format, and you can delete it, and it keeps it there, but it's sort of shaded back.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Well, I'm not totally seeing all the comments yet, but that's okay. We'll get there. Okay. And then this is the documentation of permissions and all this stuff. And we didn't really do much of anything here and just gave a little bit of history about it in terms of the ownership of the railroad. And then that we have a letter of interest and the DOT has put aside $6 million for it. And then during the process, I think this is your sentence, Paul, temporary easements will be required and coordinated through their preliminary right-of-way process. So that kind of summarizes it, I think, without saying much. I don't know if this, I put in red here, the town risks losing the funding if it cannot demonstrate progress. I don't know that that adds anything, does it?
I think you can take it out.
Does it?
I mean, I don't know if it belongs in this section.
Yeah, okay, take it out.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just gonna get rid of it for now. Okay, so this is all we're doing here is it does give a little bit of beginning here of the rail line completed, that town has been in pursuit of it. We now have the letter of intent. So that just talks about a little bit about the current land ownership, I guess, right? So yeah, that's where we are. All righty, come on down. Okay. Will it take place on publicly owned land? Yes, I would think. And then agreements are in place to ensure public access. Looking at some of the background stuff, this is talking about a wide variety of things as they use the word access, accessibility, you know, ADA compliant, all these things kind of meld a little bit. So we're trying not to repeat anything that we don't have to. And this, as I looked at it in the feasibility study, there was some information there about parking. And I think part of this is access to the trail. So this is where I thought it would be good to put in what has already been talked about parking and easily accessing the trail at 4 different sites, currently up at Coleman Road, down at Sheldon's, and then over by the ball field. All of that is talked about in the feasibility study. So again, this is just a quick summary of what would be there, and all of these would be dealt with in the design phase and easements acquired as needed. I mean, that seems kind of short and simple to me. Does anybody have any other thought about that question?
I think also I mean, the only other thing is that connecting the path would allow for other communities to park in Easthampton and access the trail, right? Like, so.
Yep. Yep. I'll just write myself a note. Okay. Yeah. So I can add a sentence or something there. Yep. Okay. So that's a part of that. And you know, we'll just look at this now. This is where federal and state requirements for accessibility. Kate, I think you might have thrown this in, or I did. I don't know who did, but there is another section. What attracted me was that there's 2 sections on that talk about ADA, and this one, I think, as I went back and looked at it again, they're looking for something different here. And this actually came out of this state, Westfield State study that you got me last night, which is where I got inspired. So my proposal is to get rid of this one here in tan because it's covered later in the ADA section. But what I put in here instead is in blue. So if you would take a minute to read that. This is brand new. I don't think anybody's had a chance to look at this yet.
You know, Chris, I really struggled with the definition of accessibility because I was so hyper focused on it being accessible, like handicap accessibility. Yeah. I think I sent you an email saying there's so many definitions for the word accessible. Yeah. So when I found that study from Westfield, I was like, oh, I see exactly what they're trying to get at.
Yeah, it's not just, I mean, it certainly can include persons with disability, absolutely, but that really wasn't, I think, not really what they're looking for. They're looking for how it can be also accessible to the various population groups, I think. So this, yes, especially talking about elderly and youth.
Can you pan up a little bit to the question?
Yep.
Section.
Yeah, come on here.
Because I realized I'm like, 2 questions are asking the same, or 2 questions are asking about accessibility in different lights. And when I looked at the Mass Trails FAQs and grant guidelines, it didn't provide any good information about that.
Yeah, it didn't really, and that's where I think this, you know, this, I don't know. I think this in terms of the demographic of who's going to be able to access it, and their focus on elderly and youth, I think is probably valid. But go ahead, Paul.
So I think there might have been a section in the feasibility study that might talk about the grades out there, but this section here is more about the answer that's in the very first paragraph in terms of the technical usage of accessibility. Because when we talk about state and federal regulations, they're talking about ADA, which is the federal. Massachusetts has the Architectural Access Board requirements that's at the state level, which is a little more stringent than ADA, but it is all basically this section is to kind of ensure that we're not designing something that's going to be only accessible by stairs, doesn't have any ramps. It's going to be somewhat limited to active users that are not, you know, in a wheelchair, or, you know, users that are not in need of accessible space to access it.
Yeah. Well,
I did read through the feasibility study, and it mentioned about the longitudinal grade of 5%, and it said that there wasn't going to be any areas where it was a longitudinal grade of 5%, like, and
so that's perfect
grade too, right?
Yeah, that's perfect. That's what we want to say. It's like we're not going to have any grades in excess of 5%, and I think that is exactly. I mean, that hits a home run with that answer, I think, in my opinion.
That sentence there. So does the couple sentences before that need to be there?
Well, I think we need to also say it's going to meet Massachusetts AAB, Massachusetts Architectural Access Board. I think we probably want to add that into the mix because it does reference the state.
It's so funny. I looked up Mass ADA, ABA, like there's so many definitions to like accessibility that I felt like I learned so much by just like trying to read into it. And then I almost felt like I was reading into it too much.
Yeah. So this is what the architectural, what board?
Access board. That's what I believe 521 CMR is in its definition.
Okay, well then, yeah, I don't know, because when we get down to the ADA part, you'll see we got to figure that differently. I mean, I just don't think we should have necessarily the same answer for both questions.
It asked the same question twice, Paul, which was, I think what I was struggling with the most is like, what are they asking for each part? Like, it literally asked about accessibility in two different ways.
Yeah.
What's the FAQ question? I mean, what does the FAQ
it doesn't
refer
help.
to?
It
doesn't say anything. I've read it like 3 different times.
Yeah.
I looked everywhere online to try to find more information about FAQs and grant guidelines.
Yeah.
So what's
more information?
So
what's the subsequent section that has that?
Okay, we'll get there. So just to say what this is, and you guys can digest this and think. I'd like to include this somewhere because I think it is important for the walking and biking options in town for an aging population that is going to stop driving cars if they haven't driven cars and they still want to get out and, have some social interaction and do some, healthy exercise, etc. And kids, being able to take the bike trail to go to sports activities and stuff back and forth. So I think there's something that's here that's good. I just don't know. Maybe it doesn't belong right here. So that's our challenge, but I'll keep on moving. No purchase of steel or iron. We do have the PNF form, and I've mentioned that when it went in 2014, plus the project number. And then this was just all the narrative direction here, such as it is. Okay, and so then the proposed trail, and this has taken more or less, it's certainly taken a lot out of the feasibility study, and talks about the material that was talked about in the feasibility study. Likely be a paved trail 10 to 12 feet wide, multiple users, graded to ensure adequate drainage, slip resistant surface, and design option for a side unpaved equestrian path will be considered where feasible. Railings may be necessary at certain steep embankment areas, etc. So this is the length, width, surface material, grades, structures, signage, amenities. So, and I threw in benches and interpretive signage will be features to attract trail users. So those are the amenities, I think. We're not planning on any latrines or toilets that I'm aware of. I haven't seen any mention of that anywhere. So I couldn't think of any other amenities other than signage and benches.
It's funny, elderly people in Westfield felt that bathrooms along the rail trail were actually really important. I was reading about that yesterday.
Yeah. Well, someday maybe. We'll get this part done first, but yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so that's just kind of the description of the trail. Any further thoughts at a quick glance?
I think that's a great, I mean, it's not specific to, so it will likely be a paved trail. So there's no guarantee that it's going to be a paved trail, but it sounds like most people are supportive of it being a paved trail, right?
You're unlikely not getting a non-paved trail.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. So again, I just wanted to make everybody aware of what's in here, and then, we can critique it and make comments later on offline. And, I don't want to spend hours doing this. So The task required to complete the project. This is where I was tying back in with Ed and talking to the legal folks about the LOI content, because part of this would then be also just feeding in as maybe some specific subtasks in our milestone timeline. So apparently the way the LOI reads, this is what they have to do. They have to tell the STB that they're going to abandon it unless they've already done that. Maybe they've done that. Who knows? I don't. Then we have to submit a rail banking request. And they have to accept that. And then we have to have a town meeting. And then there has to be final closure on the actual conclusion of the deal, I think. So there's at least 4 or 5 steps the way I'm reading the LOI, but that's where I wanted to have more clue on that, okay? Critical gap, we've got a map, which I'll go into when we're done at the end here, but this just talks about following the mass bicycle transportation plan, tying into the statewide network, and I think Diana, you've done some of that through the Bay State Greenway. That was mentioned in one of the documents you found, I think. And then down here, I don't know yet, we've already said that it goes through, the completion of it will provide a vital connection through the town to the Columbia Greenway in Westfield, the Manhattan Trail in Easthampton, and ultimately the Northampton Bikeway in Northampton. I don't know that this, we've said where it goes already. I don't think we have to say that it goes the entire length of Easthampton, or do we? That's the Manhattan Trail though. I don't know.
I think that's fine.
Yeah, okay. All right, maybe. It's the Manhattan Trail. We haven't said that really, I guess. That's true. All right, I'll leave it there for now.
Well, I think we could take it. I mean, I think that you could take it out and it wouldn't,
yeah,
it wouldn't take away from what you were trying to say.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. That's what I'm trying to do. Okay. And then but I thought it was kind of important. DOT completed the final segments of the Manhattan Trail, and then off-road and on-road connections to the regional bikeway network are in place or being developed in Westfield and Southwick. So that's what made me feel more comfortable about not worrying about the fact that we're kind of dead ending at Sheldon's. I didn't know if it was useful to add this. I mean, I feel by the time we put in so many names of trails and greenways, it's just going to be confusion. I was proposing to end it like with Southwick. But whatever works, okay? So, and again, we'll just keep on rolling here. This was something, Kate, I know you had done this. I'm going to take out the yellow. Thank you. This is stuff that came right out of the open space plan. It talks about where the rail property borders in terms of the conservation areas and the APR lands. What got me confused when I read it, and maybe it's just overthinking it too, and I think it's just a matter of taking out some words. In the plan, it talks about connecting to over 400 acres of protected land, both APR and conservation areas. So my thought would be to take out this also abuts almost 300 acres of Chapter 1 lands, because Chapter 61 is protected farmland. What was getting me confused was whether the total is 400 acres or whether it's now 400 plus 300. That's why I was getting a little bit fuzzy here. So my thought would be to just, take that one out, because Chapter 161 land is recreation land. It's farming, it's forestry. It is protected land. So I'm kind of thinking that would be a redundancy there. So I'm going to just double check that again with Marla or somebody. I know we own lots of conservation land, but the rail trail itself only goes by a certain amount of it. So this is in the light tan here is what we're probably going to keep as one more little piece of that answer. Okay. In terms of,
but you think if it seems redundant to you, it probably is. So yeah. I think it's fine to make it more concise. And yeah, the yellow stuff that was just to cross-reference it because.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. And that's where, it's talking the same, this is where it came from. So it's connecting here, and then it's also a but. So it's like, God, we're talking really 700 acres here? I don't know. So it's the also that kind of got me a little bit thrown off here. I don't want to overstate something that isn't true, that's all. And then environmental justice, and this is, I know, Kate, you were working on this. So this is what we have Southampton doesn't have it. Any communities due to low population, rural nature. The Greenway will tie together several justice communities in neighboring cities. And then you've got the, let me just pull this up a little bit. This is the Easthampton. And then I think some of this we can narrow down for sure. I mean, this, you were just plopping in the stuff from the Easthampton OSRP, right?
It's from 2 different places. Feel free to cut out whatever. I just figured more, like you said, you wanted a little bit more detail about what populations it would be connecting. I figured it was easier for you to ask a couple of sentences than to try to, add more later.
Sure. It's just that things like the community development grant, this Pleasant Street and all this is all the center of Easthampton. This is how that trail is helping Easthampton. For sure. So that wouldn't apply to us at all, for example. But there are those neighborhoods that have got, 3 of the 4 neighborhoods have got close proximity to the trail, Manhan Trail, which would then obviously help us as well. So yeah, I probably will trim that down, but that's good information to work from. And same with the Westfield open space one, their plan too. And this is talking about how they've done their completion of their trail in Westfield. So we've just got to see maybe a piece of this that we could, massage into something relevant for us. We can't totally claim it, but we can say we're connecting to other cities and communities that have this environmental justice designation, right?
You'll probably know how to say that the best. That was, I did try to pull out some statements about how it would connect underserved populations to the bike path, which is, I think, what the initial question was.
Yes, yeah, I think it was. Let me just go back up here. It's one of those that, is tough when you're not in a community that has it. So underserved can, encompass population groups, low income, minority, elderly, children. So, okay, so maybe my point on the elderly and youth that I had earlier, maybe that could go in here too. So we'll see, improving access, quality of life for these populations. So maybe that could go here instead of up where I had it. So that just gave me a thought right there. So yeah, so it really is going back and just double checking the question and making sure that whatever we're putting in is really answering the question. So that's a good set of information to pull from, and it's just a matter of working through that, I think. Steps taken to ensure underrepresented voices and populations. I think we're just going to say that we have not solicited any feedback from non-English speaking populations or persons of color at this point in time, right?
So I wanted to ask about that. So I was thinking about some of the information that was included in the previous question, because I do feel like it would I don't know how to say this, like it would tie together different low socioeconomic classes and people who have lived low English proficiency in Westfield. It's funny, the demographic in both Easthampton and Westfield is about 10% of the population who doesn't speak English at home. All of those communities, the highest prevalence of people who don't speak English at home are within proximity of the bike path.
Okay.
I don't know how to say that, like how to tie that with that, but I do feel like part of the answer to the last question does indirectly apply to this question. And that study that I pulled from Westfield highlights some of that same, like hints on that same information.
Okay. All right. Well, we can still work on that. We know that this environmental justice one is a little tricky, so it
is really tricky. It's totally tricky.
Yeah. So then coming into the readiness, so we've got the PNF form submitted to DOT. We've done the environmental and engineering studies. And then this was a whole lot of stuff in here in terms of permitting. And I know, I think, Paul, you'd suggested a couple things we'd put in, and we were going to take out one. But definitely, we know we've got to get wetlands permissions and various other permissions here from Concom. I think this whole thing about NEPA, so this early environmental checklist, we probably do need to say in there, right? checklist as required by DOT will be completed under the scope of this, right?
Yeah,
So,
I think that's all standard stuff that we would expect to be doing.
So that should stay in there.
Unless we want to, you know, I don't know, do we need to talk about, you know, using the theme of keeping it short? Do we need to be so verbal?
Well, might trim it a little bit here, but so it's what planning engineering steps have already been accomplished, what are anticipated and what are in place. Is there a plan for ongoing maintenance? Well, okay. Well, I guess. So engineering and permitting steps. So here, certainly some of that, the permitting I think we've got here, in terms of just that we need, we know that we're going to need wetlands permits and environmental permits and natural heritage, right? The historic is natural heritage. Is that right, Ben? Is that how it's called?
No, that's two different
things?
Yes.
What's the historic one called?
It's Mass Historical Commission.
What does it have for an abbreviation? Is it any?
MHC.
Oh, okay. Okay. I know we had to send one, Diane, didn't you, for the rail trail, the other rail trail application to the historic or not? Or no?
I think that was the land grant for Clearwater.
Oh, okay.
Well, I don't remember that acronym now.
Okay. I'm not
I think
sure
it is like MH. Maybe I can find the letter. Hang on.
Yeah, MHC, you said? Okay.
Something like that, not quite.
I don't want to put that in there. Okay, hang on. Oh, go away. My cat is telling me to go away. Yes, I know. I'm just going to put myself a note here. Yeah, so we'll find it. So yeah, we may have to go back and trim this. I don't know if we are thinking about the U.S. Army Corps of U.S. Army Corps of Engineers would have to be involved, Paul. That's the first I'm hearing of that.
Well, technically, it depends. I mean, if we're changing any culverts, we don't know. I mean,
okay.
The preliminary studies say that there might be some minor adjustments, but
okay.
It's
yeah. Okay. Well, those are permits we need. Hazardous materials. Is that a special permit required there too, or something that we have to reference?
It's a process that we need to go through, review the, the environmental review of potentially any contamination sites on that corridor.
Okay. All right. So then moving on down here. Guess I'm not moving this correctly here. Here we go. So then the conservation management. So this is again the NHESP, and this is going to be the rare species, which are probably going to be those wood turtles.
Well, that was discussed already up top, wasn't it?
It's somewhere in here. I don't know if we've hit it yet. It may be still coming, but there is a little place for that. But yeah. So again, we just need to really focus in on this section and tighten it up, I think. So wherever we can say the least amount of information, probably the better. And I think you had suggested we could get rid of this section that's already crossed out here.
Get rid of that, but you can also get rid of conservation and management permit, the paragraph right before it, because that's repeated.
Okay. Okay. All right. So we can take out a couple of these things and see. Okay. All right.
The DEP.
Yep.
No. That one doesn't pertain.
Which one does? The
one that I scratched out, the water quality certification.
Oh, it does pertain. We want to keep
does
that.
Does not.
Does not. Okay. Yep. Got it. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Community support for the project. This we may have to just trim a little bit here too, but this talks about what we've done back in the day when I think the outreach had happened. So this is talking about how was the public involved. Well, the project selection, planning, public role going forward, what votes are required, have those taken place, existing or anticipated opposition to the project, and how that's been addressed. So this talks in here about the open space update, the master plan update, and the general favorable nature of the Greenway coming up as a high priority for the town. Talked about having volunteers come in to be involved in doing any kind of maintenance that may be needed, and that there is a new committee, the Friends of Open Space, that could help do that. And then I went back and talked about the forum that was held during the feasibility study where people had time to bring up their issues, and these were some of the concerns about crime down in this area. crime, non-residents, possible increased taxes, increased noise, increased policing, etc. And just to say that, you know, the opinions have evolved, but as part of the rail banking or as part of the acquisition process, the rail banking agreement will need to be presented to town for a vote at the annual meeting, and community outreach will be needed to ensure ideas and concerns are able to be dealt with again. So in other words, we have to have a second kind of community meeting, most likely when we get to that point at town meeting, right? Or before town meeting, something like that. This is kind of a long section. This is one that worries me that may be lengthy. So
I was actually wondering if you go to the top of that. So I think it's okay to say that there's a master plan community engagement survey was conducted. And I wondered if just saying like 74% indicated either support or strong support for the bike path. Like, I don't know if you need to include that. Most of those people were people who lived in Southampton for 10 years or less. Like, I feel like that could probably go.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like 74% is good.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that kind of tinkering, I think, is really, you're right. It has to happen. So that's the kind of thing. Yeah, Diana, was that you?
No, that wasn't me. But
okay.
You could just take out acquiring land. Why not just say indicated that completing the bike path? That probably, I mean, that implies acquiring the land.
Where is that? Sorry.
It's like right above the yellow line, about the 10 years or less.
Okay, completing the bike path.
Completing the bike path ranked highest.
Oh yeah, okay, gotcha. I see it. Okay, yeah, okay. That's the kind of thing. Well, you know, this will be a midnight exercise for me. So okay, but I think we know, I have gone through and looked at the comments from the public forums that happened. Was at the end of the feasibility study, I believe, and so that, you know, gives some truth to the fact there. Those were the concerns. They may still be there, but we can hope that opinions have evolved over time. Potential safety issue. Hang on, come back here. Come on up here. Come on.
You can always reference, you know, I was just thinking about that last section. We could always reference the more recent community survey kind of at the end of this section, because maybe it would be like, maybe it would show that maybe before there was some concerns, but more recently, you know, now it ranks top 8 or number 1 out of 8 possible things that would be good for our town. Kind of like closer to that.
Maybe just to reorganize the paragraphs. Yeah. Okay. Possible. Okay. So this is just doesn't really apply unless we're really asking for funds to address an issue. So I think really all we would really need to do here is just this little bit here that, you know, where people use the bike trails in Easthampton and Westfield, and, you know, anybody that wants to do these has got to be, you know, navigating Route 10 or something like that. At the very most, there would be a couple sentences here. I'm going to take out this red part because I don't think that has anything to do with this particular issue at this point in time. But that would be my thought in terms of safety.
You know, I don't understand why you say this question does not apply.
Well, because it says for funds to exist, an existing or potential safety issue. So that's where I think that the road, you know, the safety issue to me is riding on Route 10 if you want to ride your bike, right?
Right.
Right.
So what? So
yeah. So yeah. Well, okay.
So
yeah.
just to add to,
I think I'll take out that
Chris.
sentence.
Yeah. I don't
What Chris is saying. I mean,
yeah.
If you
and
just
start it with many Southampton residents use Easthampton and Westfield's bike trail.
Gotcha. Okay, go ahead. Yep. I think I had started it at one point and thought I didn't have to answer it, and then I went ahead and answered it anyway. Yep. Go ahead, Paul. Sorry. Yep.
No, but I was going to say, you know, in terms of specifics, if we were putting a dedicated bike path that would be parallel to Route 10, and we knew of crash history or accidents involving pedestrians or bicyclists, that would be a safety issue, and that would be, you know, the warrant or need for a dedicated bike path, let's say on Route 10. But given this is sort of an exclusive, non-existent pathway that's there. There's no history. Yeah. So,
but
I do agree with
in
what
that Westfield study. There was a lot of information about people who were less likely to walk or ride a bike because of the fact that there weren't trails available. So I don't know if that's worth including, but it says 3 and 4 residents said they would support building more protected bike paths at other locations, and that the importance of safe walking facilities should not also be underestimated. And that it says 81 motorists were the reason of feeling unsafe for 81% of respondents. Yeah. So maybe there is a way to make it more like find more statistical data about how people are like use shared use off-road paths because they're safer.
Well, they know all that information already. That's why they have that group. And all I'm trying to say is, if we're trying to keep words down, it doesn't, you know, I guess the point is keeping it focused on, you know, on a specific safety problem it's asking. I mean, we can add that other stuff. I was just, you know, providing suggestions.
Yeah. So do we think that what's here is okay, and we'll get rid of the red part because that's more technical, and that isn't really what we're talking about at this point in time?
I would suggest that, I guess.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so we won't have a very long answer there, but we got a little bit. Okay, and then here we come to our famous disability one. All right, so how it will new or improved access with limited mobility, etc. So here's what we have, which is a piece of that other other question here too. So I think this definitely belongs here. But I added in I added this crazy sentence. I don't know if that's even true. I made it up, but for appropriate heights of side railings or even an audio presentation of key rail features, maybe for people who are hard of hearing, etc. You never know. We've got to be looking at a variety of persons with disability and having that broader access. But then this, I think in a way that the whole grading here, that sentence belongs too, because if you're talking about a wheelchair user, I mean, there's nothing worse than having too steep an incline to sit in your wheelchair with and try to push somebody in a wheelchair, or be alone in your wheelchair and try to do it. So I think this belongs here. It's just that I think we've repeated some of this up in that other accessibility question too. So
I didn't know how to say that alternatively, like if you look at the grades on route, like if people were to use a different pathway, it would be along Route 10, which is incredibly rocky. The grade is very steep. I mean, there's no real, I was trying to figure out like the best 2 sentences way to describe that. Like the only other alternative path is a steeply graded, non-accessible sporadic sidewalk along a highway. Mm-hmm. Like, how do you say that in like one sentence? Just like off-road.
You just did. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, it's really you could say the only alternative pathway is a steeply graded
just say
road along a highway with sporadic sidewalks.
Steep what? Steep along the highway? Steep what?
Alternatively, steeply graded road along a highway with sporadic sidewalks. The only current alternative. I don't know. I guess that just came out like way easier. I literally like spent like an hour and a half looking at just this one section just yesterday.
we can still tinker with it, but that gets some keywords in there anyway. Is there any other thought that we need to put in here for disability stuff, Paul? Anything that comes to mind?
No, I think we hit the nail on the head here.
Okay. And I just think that, again, we've got some of the same logic for the accessibility question. That's what was, you know, that's why that other accessibility one, though, I think you're right. It talks about some of the state and federal requirements that I think I missed when I read the question on that first question there. So we'll go back and be sure of that. And then Diana,
about in terms of reading about visual impairment and how road acts like where there's intersections with roads. Paul, you could probably elaborate on whether or not this would be important for this question. Is like road intersections are usually built with accommodations for people who are visually handicapped as well, like how they have like the
Okay.
ramps, the pumps on them. I don't know how to describe it.
Well, yeah, and again, we'll see what, we want to be, clear and succinct and hit the point. That's the main thing. And then I just don't know what this is going to look like in terms of when we put it in the online version, how long it's going to look. But anyway,
I think one of the more important features, I think you want to like say under this section is to state out flat. This is going to be a dedicated way, right? A greenway that is dedicated and not, not shared with any other facilities, meaning that it's going to provide the highest standard for safety or something like that. That's not something that I would typically say professionally, but it's going to provide that essentially because what we're offering.
So not shared with other, with motorized transport or something? With motorized?
Correct. It's a dedicated greenway, not shared with motorized vehicles.
Yeah. Okay.
And that also kind of transitions to the following question too. Well, what makes it unique? High quality recreation, but it's dedicated.
Yeah.
I wrote the longest thing after saying.
No, but I think we had lots to say here, though. Really,
Well, I think some of that stuff we said before. I think
it's okay to be a little bit wordy here because it is the essence of why we're all sitting here and really advocating.
Yeah.
And this is why
this is the capstone.
Yeah. So this, we can look and see whether there's some little bit that could be trimmed, but I think we've talked about trying to not only be interesting to town residents, but how it could be useful or attractive rather to
well, I mentioned the ice cream shop, and that's up above too. I don't know. We want to say that twice.
You're giving them free publicity here. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, but it talks about the historic district. It talks about the canal. So all of that is pretty interesting. And then also abutting the Manhattan Meadows, which is going to be under renovation too. And so that's really going to allow people to get off and go explore the conservation areas easily while they're on their journey. And then this was some of the information gathered out of the statistics we got from PVPC. So to the extent that we can quote certain things, like I think you have here, that's a good thing. I think we should, put in some quotes about what others are saying about the Southampton Railway here. So I think part of that is very good.
And Diane, I think that the study in Westfield had some really great statistics about how like 75% of the people use the trail weekly or something like that. Like it's a lot of people that increase their use of alternative transportation just because they had access to a trail.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But the reason I bring up the Westfield one is because I thought it would link to ours, but really it doesn't link. It doesn't even come close. So,
well, it's one step closer to getting linked. So,
right. But it's not like the other one is one. The other one is 1.73 miles from us.
Yeah.
That counts. Whereas this one, I don't know how far that would be. Quite a way.
Yeah. What's the distance between where we end and where the Westfield one begins? Do we know offhand?
I think it might be like 10 miles or something. Yeah.
No.
No, it's not that far.
No, I thought it was like Shaker Farms Country Club. Isn't that where it starts?
I know you can
no,
get on
actually, they've got it going to the river now.
Oh.
There's the Westfield River Walk. When I was reading, it goes to the River Walk.
So more right in the center of Westfield, I think, right?
Yeah.
6 miles.
So
yeah,
6 miles.
Right by the North Elm Butcher Block.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So far.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, but I think, again, we'll take a look at it, but this is, I think, good information to talk about, you know, something that's of interest and quality to not only Southampton residents, but visitors. So I think the historical features and just the argument about people that are out there using it, you know, if we have this connection made, then this is going to be, you know, that much more, another 3.5 miles that people can go, even if they do have to turn around, you know, I mean, whatever.
Would it be better to put this Mass DOT thing up higher where you talked about Mass DOT? Mass DOT has identified the Greenway as a, quote, priority corridor.
Yeah, I think I would want it a little bit higher because, you know, the way that people tend to read, in my experience, is that, you know, they'll read the first paragraph maybe tightly and then they kind of scan through the rest maybe. So I think if there's something
in a higher question.
Yeah, I think if it's really, oh, in the higher questions, you mean, not this question?
Right. Didn't it
come
I see. Up? Mass,
okay, maybe.
Maybe in the question, you're right, Diana. What about in the question where it asks about how it provides a link in between other existing trails?
Yeah, something there. Okay, that might be able to be moved. Okay, we can take a look at that. Just a thought. Yep. Okay.
Or maybe that's one that stays in both places.
Yeah, could be too. Could be a summary question. Okay, good. And then under this social cultural stuff, just a few answers here. Remnants of the district, the canal, the whistle stop, which is in the feasibility study. Going to be reaching out to any so it's not any HP then. I've got the wrong initials here, right?
Where are you?
That's not the right thing. That's not the historical.
No, the historical is, Paul was right, MHC, Massachusetts Historical Commission.
Okay, all right.
Well, this one is, once again, it's repetitive. The MHC is number 4.1, right? So that's right. Yeah, and then 4.
Yeah, 4.1 is about MHC, so 4.2.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. I saw the word.
Is as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then just how you'll avoid it. So we will reach out to MHC for permissions. That's all I said for 4.2.
Yeah, okay. And Southampton Historical Commission as well, I think. That plays a role too.
Oh, and yeah. SHC too. Both of them? Yep.
Yeah, typically it's both.
Okay. Got it. Minimal excavation. We talked about this a little bit last time. Only after the railroad right of use has been acquired and survey work done will be the preliminary construction activities that will include removal of existing timbers and rails according to DOT regulations. Simple enough. And then location and extent of excavation will occur along the length of the rail bed to convert it to a trail bed. Yeah, I mean, this is really, you know, again, I don't know, some of this stuff, because we're doing an acquisition project, but again, her advice to us was answer everything that you can with information that you know, so that, you know, it's not totally empty, I guess. But
there was another sentence that I put somewhere else in there that talked about how it would, because of the existing rail trail, it allows for minimal disturbance to the natural environment or something like that. Maybe that actually belongs there instead of in the other section. I don't know. I can try to find it and maybe highlight it.
Okay. All right. Okay. Wetland permitting stuff. So the extent to which we will require that, it's not fully known, but all necessary permitting requirements will be respected. I mean, I don't know how much more we need to say.
But
we don't need.
I have a question. If you're just acquiring the land, why do you say that this involves excavation? Because this project doesn't. This is just acquisition of land, right? So
yeah, but it's acquisition of land with an intent to do something.
Well, so you could answer no and then provide the same explanation, maybe.
Okay. Well, and that's why I was saying only after that's been acquired and until the design work is complete. And that's why I was kind of couching that. But yeah, so whether we answer, maybe I answer no rather than, I don't know. What do we answer there? Yes or no?
Well, it talks about the project. The project is not necessarily, though the project encompasses the intent of what we're doing, as Ed said.
Oh,
so
okay.
Yeah.
It goes beyond, you know.
I mean, the immediate project or purpose of this is obviously the acquisition, but it's, you know, we've got the intent to do something with it, which.
Okay.
So that can be said for any question asked with ADA and everything else.
Pretty kind of crazy here, but yeah. And then this one, Conservation Commission is aware of the application, has adopted a local wetlands bylaw and will act as needed on any NOIs that may be required once we reach the construction phase. So again,
the design phase.
Yep.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Design.
Right. I don't know where I got construction. Yep, you're right. Good. Okay. And then the famous wildlife in the river. I know, and I couldn't pull it up. Somewhere I've seen the Lyman Dam thing, and there were 2 species that DER identified, and I can't remember for the life of me. One was the turtles, and the other was a mollusk, I think.
It's probably mussels.
Mussels, there we go. Something, yeah. They have a name, though. I need to figure out what that was.
Well, we don't need to go into detail. I think we just, once again, we circle back to the permitting discussion that's in section
exactly,
whatever, 3, whatever.
So it's just, you know, will that occur with any rare species? And just to say that, you know, we already know that these 2 things are here, and, you know, again, permits will be obtained or whatever. So, yeah. Same thing. I've tried to say that permitting thing a couple of times here too. Likely the tree removal will be needed, but MEPA regulations will be respected as part of the permitting process. So just kind of plopping an answer in there. And then nothing on the equipment. So that was pretty much it on that one. So I think, you know, if people can kind of go through and feel free to tinker, and I'm not obviously doing well in terms of managing all the comments and highlighting and whatever here. So I think once a comment is done and we've made changes, I'll try to clean it up. Let's put it that way. I'll try to clean it up, and then anybody go in and make other changes and comments. And then we can see where we are. I don't know when the comments go away. I guess I don't know that.
You have to remove them. So either if you delete all of the text that's highlighted as part of a comment, it will get rid of that comment. Otherwise, you have to acknowledge it.
Got it. Okay, good to know. Good to know. Okay. So I guess that's basically it. And I think the other thing I wanted to check on, there's in the folder, when you go back into Mass Trails folder, I pulled 3 or 4 photos out of the, I don't know that I can bring it up because I don't have it. I don't have it handy here. I pulled 3 or 4 photos out of the studies and just put them on one page. There could be an attachment and just showing some photos. Then there is one kind of, I guess I would say it's a topographical map that was in the feasibility study. And then there's the bike trail map that Diana pulled up this afternoon from the Trails to Trails Conservancy that shows Southampton missing. So I think those would be 2 good maps to include, but if anybody had any different choices, let me know as our attachments on that. Okay.
Do you have letters of support from anybody?
We don't, and it doesn't say that you need them. And I guess that was going to be another question. Do we need to do that?
No, you don't need them, but you know.
Okay.
I don't see that it could hurt.
Yeah.
I wondered if it would be worth like explicitly referencing the new community survey or having a like a graph or something from the most recent community survey that would show, like, if you look at the community survey, there's so much in there that directly relates to people prioritizing the completion of this rail trail. And so I didn't know if it would add value to include something from that. I didn't know what it would be, but
yeah, I'm not sure. We've talked about it in the narrative, so I don't know if a graph is going to be any more impactful necessarily. Yeah, it's
Didn't
not much.
somebody, I'm sorry, but I think it was your discussion with somebody who they told you, you know, tell it right in the narrative. Don't like footnote it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, it was. And so, you know, whether, you know, if we want to do attachments, we've definitely got to do the feasibility study, and well, we've got to do the LOI for sure. Feasibility, hopefully, that's not too awkward. A couple of maps and a page of photos. So I'm thinking like, you know, 5 or 6 attachments at the very most. You know, I think we're maybe a little bit more into it than we need to be, honestly, for an acquisition project, but you know, whatever.
Okay.
It's a good project. I don't know. But
I should tell you that I'm going to submit the other Mass Trails application tonight or tomorrow. We're ready to go with it.
Great. That's good. Good,
and
good job.
$98,000 for a bridge.
Wow. That's a fancy bridge.
Yeah.
No
good.
maintenance.
Yeah, really. That's good. So anyway, so here we are the 19th. We've got to get this in by the 1st. So I was thinking to sort of backtrack a couple of days from that and get it in like, you know, whatever, the 30th with a little bit of luck. So we've got about 10 days to still tinker with language here, and I don't think it really should take us all that long. It's going to be a question of putting in something for a budget and putting in something for the timeline. And once we hear back from Ed and KP Law, hopefully we can fill those in, you know, maybe certainly by the beginning of next week, Ed, do you think?
Oh, I would think so, yes.
Yeah, okay, so we can get that.
I would expect even maybe by the end of this week.
Yeah, okay, well, that'd be good. That'd be great.
I wanted to say they want like all the attachments, like if you have, I think you said 2 or 3 photos, they want that as one PDF.
Yep.
Which I don't know how to do. My son always has to do that stuff for me.
Okay. Yeah. No, I put three pictures, I think, on, well, 2 pieces of paper. So it is a PDF. I think I'll check that. Maybe I didn't convert it to a PDF, but I will.
And it can't, I mean, it doesn't sound like anything will be too big, but they have limits on the size of their attachment.
Okay. And that's where the feasibility study, even though Paul compressed that, it may still be tricky to transfer. So that was another thing she was saying, that we might be able to send that via Dropbox somehow.
Yeah.
Which would be another reason to try and get this in, you know, a couple of days ahead of time. So,
right. Yeah.
So I
Could you
guess
provide a link, like if it's accessible online, could you provide a link to the accessibility?
That's what I was thinking.
Okay, that might be a good idea. Yeah. Okay, I think that could be possible. I mean, the more important document is the LOI. That's definitely the most important document for sure. But like you said, probably somebody would want to read the feasibility study or flip through it at least. So to give them that link, we could. And we could just give them the link that's on our website, Ed, right? Is that the easiest way to find it?
Yeah, that should work. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, we can figure that out. All right, so shall we have one final meeting before we push the button on this?
Sure.
And if so, what works for everybody? Now, what I'm proposing, unless anybody has any objection, unlike the other grant, Ed, where, you know, you and I had to kind of cut and paste it and do it together from your computer, I think I can go ahead and just enter this in online and save it as I go. Is that okay? Rather than coming down to do it at town hall?
Yeah, unless you find out something different, and otherwise we'll do it together. Do it together again.
Okay, well, let me start it and see if it works. And it sounds like, Diana, you did that for the other one. So it sounds like you just save as you go, and then you can resume it again. And
yeah, you get a option of either next or save and resume. And if you hit save and resume, this site comes up that tells you to put your email in, and then you click that, and immediately you get a email with a link to go back into it.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so how about what's good for anybody here? I know we've got a select board meeting the 26th. What's anybody else's schedule for that week offhand? With your other, any planning board meetings or anything else in the way? I know we've got planning boards on the 20th as I look here, open space 21st.
My My next meeting for Board of Health is tomorrow. So I think unless there's some pressing need, we shouldn't have another meeting by next week.
Yeah. How about the 25th? Is that a Monday? What day is that?
I was thinking the 25th as well. I think that would be great.
Doesn't
I can't do
like...
the 25th. I got a finance committee meeting.
The 25th?
But if you can all get together, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, because we've got select board, the next one.
I just worry that 27th is like Wednesday. That doesn't give us a lot of time if there's some tweaks that need to be done.
Yeah. Okay. What time's your finance? At 5:30, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'd kind of like to go with Monday if we could, just to make sure we got enough time.
Sure.
Fine with me. Not that I'm critical.
Okay.
All right, let's try Monday, and if you can join us, Ed, later, fine. We'll try. Should we make it maybe at 6 o'clock, and that would give you an extra half an hour to play with?
Sure.
I wouldn't worry about it. I think this is going to be a long finance committee meeting. So.
Oh, all right. Okay. Well, we'll try and do without you, and if we need you, I'll scream at you the following day. How's that?
That's fine.
But I think what we really need from you though is to get whatever information you get from KP Law, just to send us around on email.
I can do that.
Okay, sounds good.
Yep.
All right, thanks guys. So with that, I think I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Okay, Fowles eye. Adjourned at 7:28. So thanks guys. So feel free, I'll clean it up a little bit, but feel free to go in and play with things that you don't think are right and put a comment or something there, okay?
Great.
All right.
Thanks for your help.
Thanks,
You guys
Chris.
have been great. Thank you much.
Hey guys.
Bye-bye.
We'll see ya.